This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It gets into the third hour, and we are glad that you are tuned in this morning from wherever you are. Charles Uchagwa is in Dubai. In Mombasa is Blackie. In South Africa is Londiwe. And also Alan Ponjo Matie Ndlovu. Did I get those names right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Yeah. And also in Kimilili is Amos Freeman. And Amos Freeman is saying, today's proverb is killing me. City, please kill Amos again with today's proverb.
This is a man who wants a speedy death, does he? All right, let's provide him with a speedy death. We aim to please. Now, where on earth is that proverb? Anyway.
It's died.
No, I know it off head. What did I say off head? Yes. Got it.
Okay. On the paper. Mm-hmm.
Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand.
Knowledge without wisdom is like water in the sand.
Yes.
Knowledge, water.
Sand.
You know, you confuse this matter in the morning because
Wisdom.
you started with water and the proverb begins with knowledge. Not water without knowledge. It's like sand in the river, nothing of that sort. It is knowledge without
Water.
Water.
Nyinyi.
Sorry.
Without wisdom.
It's like
water
in the sand.
in the sand.
Yes.
Okay. A very good morning to everybody
Yes.
who's joining us on KTN Home, who will be with us for the rest of the hour. We have two ladies who've joined us in the studio this morning, and they have knowledge and they have energy. And they're not like water. They're not like sand. Right? Millicent Okello is Energy Program Manager at an organization called Practical Action. And also from Practical Action is Rachel Onyango, who's the Head of Business Development and Communication. Good morning, ladies. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you, Eric.
It's good to have you here, and it's a blessing to have you here with us. What is Practical Action? Who wants to start? Rachel.
I can start.
Yes.
But before we start, maybe I can start with a question to you, Eric.
Okay, please.
So this is a practical lesson.
Yeah. Did you have a cup of tea in the morning?
Yes, it's
Who
here.
made the cup of tea for you?
I did.
You did yourself? What did you use? What fuel did you use to make the cup of tea?
Electricity.
Electricity. Yes. So Practical Action, we are a development organization. And we believe in our rallying call is that we work on development issues, and we believe in the call of big change starts small. And so we work with smallholder farmers in the Lake Basin. We also work with the women entrepreneurs, and we also work with the informal waste workers in terms of ensuring access to water, access to sanitation, and also access to hygiene. Yes, that is who we are as Practical Action.
Okay.
Yeah.
In English? Did you get it?
Yes, I got it. I got it.
Okay, what did you get?
Lake Basin.
Of course you would.
You got Lake Basin. What did you get?
Informal workers.
Informal workers.
Waste workers.
Informal waste workers.
Waste work, yeah.
Yes.
Who are those? Who are informal waste workers?
Informal waste workers are people who are deriving their livelihood from the waste value chain. So, for example, are they pit emptiers? For example, are they waste collectors? I guess some of us are in the same age group here. And we also grew up knowing that there's a group of young people who always collect paper and take it to recycling plants, and they're paid. So these are people who we call waste workers. Yes. But today we are here to talk about women entrepreneurs in the energy value chain.
Bus.
Yes.
And this is an interesting bit.
Yes.
So we're talking about renewable energy in Kenya.
Yeah.
And then we want to talk about women who are playing in
Yes.
this particular field.
Yes.
Renewable energy, just from our casual understanding, is energy that is renewable.
You're brilliant this morning.
Right?
Eric.
It's just as casual. It's
Stumbling.
practical
Now,
action.
this man is full of definitions.
It's as practical.
Yes.
Practically speaking, renewable energy is energy that is renewable.
Yes, so you are telling us that you are explaining these things simultaneously, which means one after the other.
Yes.
Surely even you.
What did they say in school about using the same one to define the word?
You shouldn't.
Not allowed.
Surely.
Well, actually, what they would say is that you're being verbose. Yes. A simple explanation would suffice. But when you talk about renewable energy and you talk about energy, the thing that comes to mind readily is fuel, at least in my mind. Because when you talk of energy and you relate to the sun, it bears more relevance when I can relate it to something that I need for my daily use. And when I said I got it, I was assuming that this is what you people are all about.
Yes.
And we're talking about energy that is readily available to all.
Yeah.
And perhaps the scarcity, not of the energy source itself, but of the innovative ways of actually using it so that it can benefit lives.
Yeah.
Okay.
Conversation about renewable energy has been happening in this country for a while.
Yes.
And, pushing towards investment in renewable energy. Okay, are we using solar? Are we using wind, right? Are we using hydro? Or are we talking about the energy sources that are depleting, like...
Thermal.
Yep. Or like cutting of trees and then using that to as firewood and charcoal. So when we talk about investment in renewable energy, are we talking about those new technological advancements of solar, of wind, or are we talking about other basics?
Thank you, Eric. Sorry. As an organization, our focus is mainly the people who are not connected to the main grid electricity. We are also looking at serving people who do not have access to clean cooking. And so when we talk about renewable energy at the community level, mostly we are looking at enabling access to solar products, for example, to the households that are not able to probably afford the grid connectivity from the main grid provided by the government, or there is no infrastructure at their level that can allow them to connect to the main grid. And so what becomes the next best solution or alternative to them is the solar. So we promote uptake of solar, for example, solar lanterns or solar home systems for better lighting or cleaner lighting. We promote the uptake of cleaner cooking solutions, both fuels and the technologies. When we talk of the fuels, we are talking about the fuel briquettes. We are talking about pellets. We are talking about bioethanol, things that are easily accessible by the people at the community level. When we talk about technologies, we are looking at technologies that are improved. So remember, we talked about people who do not have access to cleaner forms of cooking. So these are not people who are using, for example, LPG. These are people who are using three stones, with firewood to do their daily cooking. These are people who are using, for example, charcoal in a stove that probably is not very well improved or not improved. So
It's not efficient.
Yeah, not efficient. So these are our target. And so what we do is to promote those alternative fuels for example, people are using charcoal. Then what are the next best alternatives? Briquette, for example.
What's a briquette?
Briquette is a fuel that is made from different waste materials, either from plants or animals, or even from charcoal dust, or what remains after you've used charcoal. So from plants, you can use rice husks, you can use maize cobs, you can use coconut shells, you can use bamboo. Yeah, people grow bamboo to just make briquettes. Yeah, there are quite a lot of raw materials that are available that can be used to make briquettes.
But how do you, making them I can understand, but how do you popularize it so that it is accepted as an alternative fuel source or power source or energy source?
Of course, you have to create awareness.
Yes.
You have to create awareness at the community level. And I think this has been one of the areas where a lot of investments have not been made. It is a clean alternative fuel, falls under renewable energy, but not many people know of it. So what we do as an organization is to try and popularize it by creating awareness on the benefits versus the other conventional forms of energy that they are currently using. We do this through radio, we do this through market storms, we do this through
Workshops?
workshops, road shows.
Let me tell you why I'm asking the question. When I first came across this term briquettes many, many years ago, I didn't understand it until you explained it. I come from a sugar growing area.
And by the sugar bagasse is also a raw material for briquettes.
Moroni, to be specific. And next to the factory is a mountain. It grows. I have seen people trying to make these briquettes. But what I've often wondered is if it is a ready source of fuel, because it sits there and it grows. How is it then that people who live in that area have never bothered to utilize this thing which they see every single day, and something that it's something that could provide them with something they actually need at a cost they can afford?
True.
That's why I asked the question, how do you get people to understand that these things that you're doing are resources that are available to them, and how do they get to actually take advantage of what is readily available?
True. So as I was saying, you need to create awareness for people to understand the available alternatives. Sometimes people use the non-clean forms of fuel, not because they want, but because they lack information that we have alternatives. If I was, for example, born in a home that we have always used firewood, and nobody has ever told me that firewood is not, has a negative health impact, would I ever have thought of an alternative? But if I get information that using open fires, for example, using firewood produces harmful gases that are causing me health problems, then I would look for an alternative. So giving people the information that they require or that they need to make those decisions is very key in helping people to adapt. The other thing is once you give them the information, you also need to build their capacity in terms of being able to produce. Because if you tell me it is, yes, I can use briquettes, and then it's not readily available in my area, what am I supposed to do? So baking briquette is very simple. So just building their technical capacity to help them understand the process of how they can produce this, even at household level, is very key in helping people shift from the conventional ways of cooking or the harmful ways of cooking to a more cleaner alternative. Yeah.
So even as you're talking about this, and we're also looking at women entrepreneurship and renewable energy in Kenya, this is a conversation now that this is steering towards. And as you're saying these things, and I'm thinking, the people who are around these cooking, that, largely in the country still are women, right? And are often looking for the cheapest alternative to be able to sustain this activity, which must occur in the home setting regularly. So this awareness that's being built, this communication that's being sent, women are then the target audience to say, here we are, and here are alternatives that you can afford and that you can sustain for livelihood. Is that the direction that you would then be going with this?
So in the energy work, we specifically target women. And as you've rightly said, women are the ones who are bear the domestic burden. And of course, cooking is mainly done by women. And so our approach to ensuring that we're targeting women is that we are reaching out to areas where we can find women. So we are reaching out to women groups. We are reaching out to women in their homes. We're reaching out to women in their small businesses, especially in the markets. Also, that's where you're going to find a lot of women running small businesses. And so targeting women also ensures that we are combating the broader health impacts of using unclean fuels, because it's the woman who's waking up in the morning at 6 a.m. to cook breakfast for children going to school. It is the woman who is making lunch for her family if the children are coming back for lunch, and it is the woman who is going to also be making dinner for the family. So if you look at the amount of time that women and girls spend in the kitchen is about 16 hours. Yeah. And so if this time is spent inhaling unclean fuels, inhaling smoke, inhaling carbon dioxide, what does this mean? It means that women, largely, children, and also everyone in the household, because then the smoke, of course, attaches itself to the house, to the roof and what, this greatly affects their health. So our entry point is women, but we also work with men.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I assume that you also work with women organizations?
Yes.
All right, now, paint for us a picture of success. What you found, what you did, and the outcome of it, and how it is that this worked out in the way that you'd actually want to see it work.
I want Millicent to talk about the story of Evelyn.
Okay, just before I get there. So as an organization, we do quite a lot in preparing the women within the energy space. We are economically empowering the women. As much as we are promoting the uptake or the access of these cleaner forms of energy, both for lighting and for cooking, in the process, we economically empower all the women that we work with. And that's why they
I'm going to ask you to explain this empowering, but go on. Yes.
Okay. So, for in economic empowerment, basically we are looking at increasing their income so that they can better provide for their households. Okay. So through the energy entrepreneurship, we do capacity building. That is a very key intervention that we do for the women, both soft skills and technical skills, to enable them run the businesses and also to aid production, because some of the fuels needs to be produced. We do a lot in terms of facilitating acquisition of equipment and all that. And so at the end of the day, what we are looking to have is to have women who are both participating in the clean energy space as actors and as beneficiaries. Actors meaning they take part in the design of these alternatives. They take part in production. They take part in distribution. They take part in providing after-sale services to their clients and to the community members. In the process, they are earning money that they are using to improve the livelihood of their households, taking their children to school, providing better nutrition, and so forth and so on. And so if you ask about what we have done and the result of it, then we can talk a lot in terms of, we have had very many in terms of households adapting to clean energy.
Actually, what I'm asking for is specifically success.
A case study.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, this is this group. It was in this place. What we found them using was this, and we
did this and
we
the
explained to them this, and we did this, and then this became this.
Thank you. So let me give you an example of Caroline, for example, in Migori County. We introduced her to briquetting or briquette making. We did the technical training for her.
What does the technical training involve?
Basically learning the process of making briquettes. That is acquiring the technical skills.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, like if I talk to you here about briquette making, you may not be able to produce it. But
actually, I will most certainly not be able to produce it.
Yes,
So
but
you
when I
have to give
take
me
you
the
through the technical skills. So we gave her the technical skills. Right now, as we speak, Caroline is one of the highest producers of briquettes in Migori County.
What material does she use?
She uses chadust for now. Charcoal dust. That is what she
Where
uses.
do you find charcoal dust?
Where you find charcoal, you'll find charcoal dust.
No,
And you know,
the reason why I'm asking
Where
this,
they sell charcoal and where they are producing charcoal. Right?
in both
Yeah.
places,
yeah.
charcoal
Where they're
dust,
burning the
Yeah.
charcoal, yeah.
and the dust doesn't involve charcoal that you've already used for cooking.
So if
No,
I'm right,
no.
so you have your charcoal, and then you see the mound of
The-
dust that you
the
usually
residue
find, the
that-
residue,
yes, yes,
right?
yes.
That's charcoal dust.
That's
Yeah.
charcoal dust.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like in a place where they sell charcoal.
Those
What
heaps of black
remains?
stuff that you see.
The
that
mountain that
initially used
climbs.
to go to waste.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huh?
So we are kind of recycling waste
Yeah.
into
Right.
cleaner form of energy.
Okay.
So she uses that. Right now, she's the highest producer, producing quite a number of bags. The demand is so high that she cannot even be able to meet. Her income has shot.
Now you say clean energy. Charcoal dust is from charcoal. Charcoal is not clean energy.
Yes.
So how does charcoal dust become clean energy?
So when you get the charcoal dust,
Yes.
you through the process
Yes.
of making the briquette. Of course, there is the compacting.
Yes.
When it is compacted, dried to remove the moisture, and then used. One, it allows for complete combustion or full burning. So when it allows for full burning, then it reduces the chances of carbon emission. So it becomes a cleaner form of energy. Two, it does not even produce smoke.
So what you're saying is that this charcoal dust produces a fuel that burns at a much higher temperature.
Yes,
So
very
it-
high. Actually, it hits higher. The rate of how do you say it? It hits higher, or it's hotter.
If it heats higher, then it means it's a far more efficient form of heating because you don't need very much of it to actually.
And it stays hotter
Yes,
for longer.
it stays hotter for longer.
Yeah.
So it is efficient. It is money saving. You use less of it. It helps you to reduce or to take care of waste
Yep.
in the environment.
Yep.
And it's something that we can always get.
Having a conversation about women entrepreneurship and renewable energy in this country. Millicent Okello is the Energy Program Manager at Practical Action. And from the same organization is Rachel Onyango, who is the Head of Business Development and Communication. Okay, we're talking about renewable energy, clean energy, and getting people to buy into this whole conversation.
Yes, I was thinking of a phrase I hear very often and I read about. It's called a carbon footprint. Huh? Charcoal trees. Charcoal represents dead tree. Dead tree represents a little
Reduced
disturbance
footprint.
in the so-called ecosystem. Burning charcoal adds to carbon in the atmosphere. Now, we're talking renewable energy, we're talking clean energy. And I'm looking at this vicious cycle, and I was thinking, okay, let's start with the charcoal. Instead of selling charcoal, why don't we just think of making all that charcoal dust? So that, well, this is my thinking. Because you can grind that charcoal and it can become dust, can't you? Yes, so I'm thinking, what if a step was taken, instead of waiting for the dust just to accumulate, why don't we fast forward the process of this dust actually being available?
So cut a tree, instead of burning charcoal, burn charcoal dust. Burn charcoal and then
produce
grind
the
it to
charcoal.
dust.
What I'm saying is, from what we've been told, if you have charcoal dust, remember this is a residue,
Yeah.
you are likely to produce a far more efficient fuel, which means you probably need to cut less trees to produce less charcoal, to produce dust. Just my thinking. Now, let me conclude my thinking by saying this. At the end of this story, do we have a situation where we are talking about planting trees and ensuring that, yes, since we understand this cycle, the process of renewing this particular resource, which comes with planting, outstrips the actual usage of this particular product? That is where I was going with my thinking.
Thank you. I think in our work, we advocate for environmental conservation. And of course, we want as much as possible to reduce deforestation and promote planting of more trees. We have these conversations with the people we work with at the community level, because we help them to understand, or we work with them to understand the negative impacts that cutting of trees has had in the environment. And why, this is even why we give alternatives of what you can actually use to make even the briquettes. You don't have to rely on charcoal dust, for example. There are other readily available materials that have been put to waste for a very long time, like the rice husks. They are burnt. I mean, they clear the fields, for example, in Ahero, and they burn them. At least in some other places, I've seen them being sold, probably to farmers. Yeah, but in those sides, you find that they burn them actually to clear the field, to come and do planting again. So we are providing providing information about other alternatives that do not necessarily members of the community do not necessarily have to rely on charcoal dust for briquette production. And remember, even when we talk about promoting other alternative sources of clean fuel, we're not just narrowing down to briquettes. Right. We have talked about bioethanol. It's also a clean form of fuel, though not produced by our entrepreneurs, because the cost, of production, the equipment, it's very capital intensive. Probably the entrepreneurs we work with may not be able to produce at their level, but they are part of the distribution channels at the community level to ensure that that will be a very good transition for a person, for example, who has been using kerosene stove, moving to bioethanol. Yeah, and it is a cheap form of fuel. Yeah. It is available. We have organizations that have come up and they are promoting this. They have even opened outlets that looks, like the M-Pesa agents within the community. Even within town. Right. That even when you live in a place that, or if you do not have the capacity, for example, to acquire an LPG, this could become a very cheap option for you.
Yeah. I don't see the concept, and maybe I don't see the concept of making the move difficult for anybody to grasp. It's a very easy sell that somebody knows, okay, here is this fantastic thing, it's working. For me, what would be the thing is the communication and the building of awareness, awareness building around this. Yeah. Like you've just said something I think is very interesting. Moving from kerosene use to bioethanol, for example. It's probably a safer form, a cleaner, a more efficient form. But the thousands of people who use kerosene on a daily basis would be the targets who would need to understand that maybe this is something that you could use. And I'm only assuming, perhaps you can correct, if it is also a cheaper form than kerosene, for example. So how do we get this information, not just to people who would be entrepreneurs, but then the end users as well, who would say, this is something then that I would want to pick up on? Because for me, it creates an entire cycle that without that communication, you wouldn't be able to achieve.
I want to add on to that question. This conversation has taken place for many years, very many years in this country. And when something is a direct solution, people don't need to be told very many things about it. Especially, you're talking about women. Women see something and it makes sense, they buy into it. We see women coming together in merry-go-rounds, in table banking, in chamas, and they basically are able to move with something. Why is it that it's taking so long for many people to see these other solutions as solutions? What is it that's an incentive, for example, for any person to say, all right, so I'm going to stop using this kind of fuel. I'm going to adopt this kind of fuel. What is it? Is it cost? Is it health? Is it efficiency? And all those things, why are they such a difficult language?
There are quite a number of factors. And I'll go back to the point that I was talking about in terms of lack of information. You see, the negative impacts that comes with, for example, using non-clean forms of fuel is not something that you'll experience instantly. It takes time, right? It takes time. And probably after some 10, 20 years, that is when you start to feel the negative impacts. So when you come with an alternative and somebody has not felt the negative impact, so it needs more convincing for this person to transition or to move from the form that they are currently using to the next. Those that have already gotten the message and they understand very well the negative impact that comes with non-clean forms of fuel or household air pollution. Of course, we've had improvements or progress in terms of adoption to cleaner forms, but we still have people who have not yet. And probably because of the cost issue, the cost comes into play. Some of the cleaner forms of energy that we are advocating for. The initial acquisition cost, for example, could be higher for this person.
Prohibitive.
Yeah, so it's limiting, it's prohibitive, and so somebody would rather continue with a koroboi that I'll go to the market and get at 30 bob, and on a daily basis I'll buy mafuta ya 10 bob and continue.
You see there, Millicent?
Yeah.
I think there's a point there. It's not for lack of awareness of that if I continue using this koroboi, if I continue using makaa or kuni, there could be health issues and complications for me. It's not for that. It is for looking at, so what's the alternative? And if the alternative is not reachable for me, I'll just continue using this. As long as you're saying, I am not going to fall sick tomorrow because I used a koroboi today. Then we're kicking the can down the road. Human beings are used to that. So the challenge then to address is what is this other thing that is disincentivizing people to take up the fuel? They have the information. Even if today you went and preached every day, unajua ukitumia koroboi, respiratory diseases are on the rise. In fact, you even come with numbers. Angalia, this ward, these people is because you'll see it. But if the alternative is not something that's reachable for me, I'm not going to take it.
Exactly. And that's why the key players within the energy sector, especially when it comes to lighting solutions, we've seen a lot of improvements, a lot of progress in terms of the models that they have developed to ensure that people have access to these alternative forms of energy. So, for example, if you look at solar energy, we have the PAYGO system that currently now allows almost anyone to access a cleaner alternative source of fuel for lighting. So, for example, you'll go and deposit 2,000 shillings and you get a home system, a solar home system that allows you to have light. You can charge your phone and you can even watch a TV. And on a daily basis, for example, maybe you just need to pay 40 shillings or 50 shillings. And so that becomes easier for people to adapt or to embrace. And we have seen a lot of change and a lot of progress because of this kind of models that enables people to acquire them at a very cost-effective way. And slowly, I mean, like the model is basically based on what you're using daily to buy paraffin, for example. Please use it to pay for the product that you're already using. And it's working, and quite a number of people are adopting, and we are happy for that. And when you look at clean lighting, for example, we have made very big strides. Globally, even globally, we have less than a billion people right now without access to clean lighting solutions. We are still lagging behind with clean cooking. Of course, we are making progress, but not at the rate at which we would want it to be.
What hinders you from doing that?
Quite a lot. I think the solutions. There are quite a number of factors around it. So there are people who argue that, for example, because cooking is more, it's more of a women affair. And for a very long time, women have not been involved within the decision making in terms of designing, in terms of production, in terms of distribution. Then it has remained. I mean, they're just the way Eric is saying, they're just there in the market, but we're not accessing them. Probably because this thing they say, it wasn't participatory.
Yep.
I didn't take part in it, so it's not going to solve my problem. Who told you to come and build this one like this? This is not how I wanted it, On the other hand, lighting is for everyone in the home, including the man. And so men, of course, put a lot of effort, including at the household level. They will be the one to buy the solar home system.
Yeah.
Whereas, because they are not always in the kitchen, they do not know the struggles that the woman goes through. And so if the man is the breadwinner within the household, and he's the one with the money, and he doesn't understand the struggles the woman goes through at the kitchen level, do you think he'll be able to invest in a clean cooking technology, or he'll give priority to something that serves his own interest?
It makes sense what you're saying. I'm also just looking at it from, there could be something else.
Many other things.
There are many other things. If you look at the merry-go-rounds and the chamas and the self-help groups that have been formed by women for home improvement, women have used this to buy utensils. They've used this to buy water tanks. They've used this to do very many things domestically, okay? They could still use the same to improve on going into clean energy. Why aren't they?
They are doing it now. And that's why it's also important to have distribution channels or structures within the community that allows these products to penetrate, to penetrate at the community level. When these products came into existence, most of them were, especially the ones that are being made by the big manufacturers, they were at the supermarkets, how many of our people, for example, in the rural areas, go to the supermarket? I just go to the nearest kiosk to buy my sugar, salt. I don't make it to the supermarket as often. And this product, that is where it is found. So when we formed structures to allow the products to penetrate to the community, and the structures includes these women groups, the women entrepreneurs that we are working with. These are the structures that have been formed. So the products are now trickling down to the community where they are needed. Our own women have become producers, designers of improved cook stoves, for example. They have become producers of the same stoves within the community. And so we are seeing change slowly taking place. Adaptation is taking place. Of course, it is not a Kenyan problem. It is a global problem because of the many issues that surrounds it. But with a lot of effort, awareness creation, penetration into the remote areas, then we will see a lot of change and a lot of progress as we continue.
Is it difficult to embark on this? I mean, is it capital intensive, Rachel?
To embark on?
On, for example, all these things that we're talking about, women making the cook stoves, women making the briquettes, thinking about the solutions that it can use.
Yes.
Is it capital intensive?
It is capital intensive, Eric. So, for example, given the choice of coming up with maybe 500 shillings to be able to buy briquettes, vis-a-vis going to the roadside and picking up firewood, what is a peasant farmer, for example, most likely to choose? On their way to the market, when the children are going to school, and we also see this in schools, they are told, come with firewood. And the use of unclean fuels is not only at the household level, even institutions. Look at our boarding schools. For those of us who went to boarding, what was being used to cook our foods then and even now? It's still firewood. And so I just want to elevate the conversation Millicent was having about having women at the table, having women as decision makers. So even in the home where women don't have such a strong voice to be able to determine how the household income is being utilized and where it's being prioritized, we also see this at the national level. So who's in charge of policy? Who is sitting around the table making policies? Are women on those tables? And who is taking decisions on what we are going to invest as a country in terms of clean lighting and clean cooking? So, for example, who is at KPLC? The government rolled out a very big, put a lot of investment in connecting people to the grid. But who was behind this decision? These are people who this affects them. As Millicent said, they need lighting, they use it, so they're going to put money into that. Can we see the same energy being put in investment on clean cooking, for example? So you find that, for example, like we have street lighting. We have a lot of rural communities being connected to the grid. But how about the government also putting in a lot of investment in awareness creation, in production, in materials, to be able to really advance clean fuels such as briquettes, pellets.
The government actually does
even
the bit.
LPG.
They have policy. Then they have development plans. And if you actually go to the government level, what you suggest, you'll actually find it exists, but it's on paper.
Implementation.
Yes. You have ministries that actually understand this thing in great detail, and they can even tell you, when they talk to you about it, you realize this person has knowledge. You mentioned something that touched a nerve. Many schools still use firewood. Have you done any work with institutions, not just schools?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if so, what did success look like? So that, because what you're saying, a school would be a greater consumer of some of these fuels that we consider to be unhealthy than just an individual.
Yeah, true. And so we as Rachel mentioned, we not only focus on households, access to clean forms of fuel, we are also looking at the SMEs accessing the same. We're also looking at social institutions accessing the same. And so, for example, in Busia and Bungoma, we worked with over 40 social institutions, which included colleges, schools, hospitals, to just promote the access of cleaner fuels. And the response was very good, very good. And imagine within the two counties, in a span of less than 1 year, we were able to actually convince more than 40 social institutions to transition to clean cooking. So it means there is opportunities, even for the business, the energy entrepreneurs themselves.
Yeah.
Business is there. Social institutions are key clients who would buy in bulk. The case of Caroline from Migori County that I talked about. Right now, she cannot serve the domestic clients because she's serving social institutions. They're coming for her products in bulk. So we have ventured into social institutions. We have promoted the uptake of this, and we are seeing very positive response to it. And of course, as an organization, we cannot reach,
you can't reach
everybody within the country. And so this tells you that there's
why not?
Capacity in terms of resources.
No, in terms of planning and thinking and forecasting and looking ahead, why not?
So,
because systemic change needs everyone.
Exactly.
The why not is still going to stay.
It still stays. For example, in 2017, the World Bank approved a project and they decided to put in money into Kenya, $150 million US for clean energy projects in the country, solar specifically. There's a project being run by the Ministry of Energy called the Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access Project that is benefiting from this $150 million US from the World Bank. When it was launched, it's actually supposed to be private sector led. Private sector think of solutions. Private sector apply for funding from the World Bank. Private sector get funding from the World Bank. Roll out your projects. 2017, 2021. Can we talk about this innovative, apart from the financial side, where you can see innovation in the financial side, getting access and financial access to these products? Can you talk about any other innovations in this sector that have taken place that you can say, this has grown like wildfire? I keep saying, if a solution is clear to somebody, you do not even need to preach to them 3 times. I see something, it makes sense, I will take it.
And you can see the benefits.
Yes.
Eric, you'll only take it if you have the capacity to do so. So if, for example, today you see a Porsche here and you do not have the capacity to take the Porsche, you can only admire. So even when we develop mini grids and you bring them to, at my gate, and I cannot afford the connectivity fee, it will remain there.
Which is why I'm asking that question, because this is not just being government-led. Government is supporting. World Bank is supporting. Private sector, business, is executing. Private sector cannot come up with a project that they know will not pick up. Okay? And if you do, then you have to keep innovating until you get the customers to buy in. Why is it taking so long to buy in? Is there a difference between what the private sector is thinking and what the market is thinking?
I think in terms of providing solutions, the solutions are there, and we all agree to that. The problem is in terms of access, right? And that's why I was saying, for example, you will bring up to a pole, an electricity pole, behind my house, and I will still not drop the wire. Because 1, I do not have the capacity. 2, even if I have, you promote or you subsidize and I need just to pay a small amount to drop it. There are regular charges that I will keep on paying on a monthly basis. If I cannot afford them, why should I why should I take the connectivity? So there are a lot of factors. And remember, electricity, for example, has become very expensive for the kawaida wananchi. There are a lot of charges that comes with, electricity. If you pay, for example, if you're buying tokens and you look at the different breakdown, it's.
Millicent,
I pay 5,000.
We're not talking about electricity. We're talking about off-grid solutions like
Yes.
the one you've been talking about
Yes.
today.
So
Off-grid solutions.
That is
like
true.
yours.
That is true, Eric. So it becomes expensive. So the mini grids will, if for example, the mini grids you're talking about, they need connectivity, and they'll be charging just the way electricity charges.
So then it's not an alternative, cheaper solution then?
It will not be alternative. It will not be cheaper because one, you need connectivity. And because these are, they are kind of private developers, they have invested a lot of resources, they need to recoup their investments. Of course, they will charge. Eric, they will charge. And so it will not be for free. So at the end of the day, you will still have to pay for all those costs that were incurred in the installation of these particular mini grids. So it becomes a challenge for many people to do the connectivity. Mini grids are working in some places, especially where the main grid has not reached. And people within that particular space has the capacity to, for example, do the connectivity. It works. But remember, we talked about our focus being the people who have not been connected to electricity. People probably who do not have the capacity to access this. So what are the next best alternatives that are available for them? It is what they can afford.
Yes.
And that is what we are talking about, the solar lanterns.
Yes.
We are talking about the solar home systems
Yes.
that have innovative ways
Yes.
of ensuring that they can access.
And all these fall under the off-grid project.
Exactly.
You're the one who's introducing mini-grid. Me have been insisting on off-grid, which is what the program is all about.
No,
Off-grid.
the World Bank
Solar
project that you
issues.
mentioned.
Yes, it's about solar solutions like those ones. It's about other ways in which people can actually access energy. Two ladies from Practical Action, and we've been very practical about accessing energy and involving women in entrepreneurship in the energy sector, especially the clean energy sector. Kenya's biggest conversation continues on SpiceFM 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, Malindi is 97.7.
The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.